Hello and welcome to the Career Mental Health Talk. Whether you're tuning in live or watching the replay, I am so delighted that you're here. I'm your host, Diana YK Chan. Comment in the let me know in the comment if you're here live, where you're from. I want to make sure that you can hear me. Can everyone hear me okay there? Yeah, you can hear me? Okay. So I want to make sure because there was a little bit of that lag time there. So the purpose of this talk is to really help you boost your mental health and well-being so that you thrive in your life and career. My intention is to create a safe space for some vulnerable conversations and to provide you courage and comfort that you're not alone. Okay. I'm your host, Diana YK Chan. I'm a former recruiter turned career coach, speaker, and trainer at My Marketability. I help ambitious professionals, leaders, and executives to find a meaningful career, navigate change, and differentiate as top talent to get hired and earn more. So today is a special episode of this live show. The reason why I decided to do this was less than 10 days ago that I just felt called to do something like this. And number one, it's a Bell Let's Talk Day, where I really want to help raise awareness on mental health and end the stigma. Second is, I know everyone is going through some stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we need to navigate, complex emotions around like grief, stress, and loneliness that most of us are not accustomed to talking about. Some of you may feel emotionally drained or emotionally done, spiritually dead. But I really want to encourage you here to not give up and just to keep showing up here, okay? Personally, I know I have been affected by mental health, which is why I really want to do something like this, to have conversation like this with you guys. So I want to hear from you. I want to check in with you guys here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current mental health level? How are you feeling? 1 being like terrible, like 10 being awesome here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current mental health level here? What's a word to describe how you're currently feeling there? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure here. I'm seeing that people on LinkedIn, are you guys seeing this? Only people from YouTube can see this right now? I just want to make sure. LinkedIn, nothing. Just want to double check. I don't know if it's the browser that I switched over here. I may need to switch browsers. Just give me 1 second here. Just want to make sure that we are in here. Okay. Can you guys, I just want to make sure. I'm just going to go in on the other side of the browser. Oh. Can you guys hear me on LinkedIn as well? Can you guys hear me on LinkedIn? I just want to make sure this is working. Is LinkedIn coming through? Not streaming on LinkedIn. Oh, unfortunately. Okay. If some of you on LinkedIn could maybe help me to say that to get on the YouTube link, that'll be great. Technical difficulties. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to continue here. Okay, so you guys could hear on YouTube, but can't hear on LinkedIn. Okay, for those who are there live on YouTube, if you can hop onto my LinkedIn link to just tell people to hop on to YouTube or Facebook, that would be great. I don't know what happened here. Sometimes these technical difficulties with there. So if you can sometimes help me put it on, tell people to come onto the YouTube link, that would be amazing. Okay, awesome. Oh, this is so strange, guys. So strange to hop on. I'm just going to tell people. I'm so sorry, guys. Someone just can post it on my there. Unfortunately, I can't do anything right now. Okay, anyhow, I'm going to have to keep the show running here. Okay, so I wanted to check in how you guys were feeling, and just some quick stats. 1 in 5 people are faced with mental health challenges. 500,000 Canadians and 1.5 million Americans miss work every week due to mental health challenges. People are burnt out. Anxiety and depression are at an all-time high since the pandemic. 1/3 of Canadians are dealing with anxiety or depression. 57% of unemployed Canadians have cited the negative impact of a job loss on their mental health. And access to mental health support has decreased significantly since COVID-19. So this is why I wanted to do something like this to talk about it, about the importance of mental health there. Okay. And so we're going to have 5 fireside chats today. We have Amy Deacon, who's a mental health therapist, to come talk to me about making purpose out of pain. And then I have David Mendoza to talk about You Are Not Alone. And then we have Shahrukh, who's going to talk about living with mental illness. And then Sophie Turner to talk about reframing your life and career. And lastly, Anhang to talk about how to rebuild your life post-family death. Okay, so I'm excited to introduce our very first speaker, Amy Deacon. Amy is a mental health therapist, clinical social worker, and the founder of Toronto Wellness Counseling. She has a decade of experience providing support to individuals struggling with stress, anxiety, depression, and trauma. Her focus with clients is learning how to make purpose of the inevitable pains in life. So let's give a round of applause. One thing I do want to encourage here, if you've guys been to my live, is I like to say, give the love and support to our speakers as well. Comment, give me your favorite emoji, share your kind words. Okay, click like and comment anytime as well. There will be the replay available on my YouTube channel there. Okay, so you don't need to worry if you miss that there. Okay, so let's give a round of applause to welcome Amy to the show.
Hey,
hi,
Diana.
Amy.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm
So
okay.
great to meet you.
I'm feeling for the technical difficulties and challenges. Isn't that so 2020? I feel like it's very timely.
I know. It's worked for me every single week, and I don't know why today's not working.
You know why? Because today we're talking about stress. We're talking about making purpose out of pain. And so the technological world was like, let's just throw some unforeseen challenges. Yeah.
Right. How am I going to handle the stress, right? With this last minute changes here when I have guests on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We're going to kick off with some question in terms of, first of all, like, why are you so passionate about mental health and what's your story?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I am very passionate. I apologize in advance if I go off on tangents. So when I was growing up, when I was a kid, my family was very affected by mental health challenges. So we had substance use issues in my family. We had depression. We had schizophrenia. We had a lot. And growing up, I remember being sent to therapy, and it was just a horrible experience. I felt like it was very sterile. It was very technical, and I didn't feel like there was actually really space for me to unpack what I was going through. The same thing for my brother, same thing for myself. And so my family actually ended up not really getting the support that we needed until way later on in our life. And I always knew from a really early age that if I ever had the opportunity to connect with people that really felt like they were going to hell and back, I was going to really show up, and I was going to really be there. And I really felt called to empower people to be able to learn from our struggles, and first and foremost, probably to take away the shame. People go through really hard stuff. That's just an inevitable part of life. And it doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that your family's horrible. I mean, sometimes families need to do their own work and whatnot. But I just wanted to create a space where people felt like help was accessible and that they weren't being treated like a patient, but like a person. That's why I'm so passionate about this.
Oh, I love your passion. And by the way, guys, you need to check out Amy's Instagram. She has an amazing, beautiful brand. So make sure to follow her. So Amy, what are some of those mental health themes that you've seen since the pandemic?
Such a good question. So you know what I would actually say? Before the pandemic, probably one of the biggest reasons that people reached out was stress and anxiety. So we think about stress in relationships, stress at work, managing work-life balance, all of that. People experiencing a lot of panic. And then when COVID hit, at first, like in March 2020, there was kind of like this silence and this stillness. And then it turned to people feeling very depressed. And the reason that people were feeling depressed is because they felt helpless. They felt hopeless. They saw all of these things happening around them. And it started with COVID. And, there was political unrest. There's been major social justice issues that we've needed to be paying attention to, but people have felt really as though there's not much that they can do. And so there's actually been quite a rapid increase in depression. And not, Diana, not just like the depression where we're crying and we're overwhelmed and we can't regulate our emotions, but the depression where we feel numb, where we feel void, where we feel empty. We're almost so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. So we've just sort of checked out. That's been a lot. And what I've seen more recently is actually burnout. So where people are just feeling so exhausted and they're tired of plowing through and they're pouring out more than they're pouring in. And it's actually resulting in people burning out, just like you mentioned at the beginning, but people calling in sick to work, people not enjoying the things that they used to find a lot of purpose in. That's been really going wild right now.
Yeah. I'm noticing that too. Like last week I had to take a mental health day. My headache was like pounding. And I think it's because I just been working too much. I just had to take a day off last week when my son had a dental surgery. And I'm noticing my own clients who are just feeling drained or need to reschedule sessions with me as well, where they just need to take a bit of a break. So I'm curious from you guys in the audience, can you relate to any of this? Are you feeling, burnout right now? Like, are you tired? Or for those who are working, like yesterday, I talked to a client who wanted to block time off with me, but then had a last minute meeting and just felt so bad to cancel his time with me. But it was just like a last minute emergency at work.
And you know what, Diana? It's so funny that it's like you took your time off when your son had a surgery. Like, is that even time off? But often that's what happens when we burn out is we're just waiting for the world to kind of give us permission to take a step back. And I think that's, I love Belle, let's talk, but I almost wish we could shift it to like, Belle, let's act. Like, let's act. Let's actually prioritize that mental health. Let's actually prioritize our self-care where we're not exercising and meditating once our day is done, but we're actually starting our day with that. That's what I want to see more of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. I have to tell you, I start my day on me first before I meet any of my clients. So I have my first hour to myself, exercise, tea, journal, meditation, and I feel so good to serve afterwards because as coaches or therapists, we're absorbing a lot of energy from other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it can feel selfish and we can feel kind of greedy for doing this. But oh my goodness gracious, it is life-changing. I tell everybody, even if you do 35 minutes, a quick meditation and a little like 20-minute workout, whatever your heart desires, even if it's yoga, do it for a week and tell me it's not the greatest thing of your life.
Oh, love that. Self-care, guys. Prioritize yourself first. So let's talk about that. What are some of those strategies to improve mental wellness?
So the most evidence-based interventions, and I wish I could see people's faces to be like, guys, you but really the most evidence-based interventions are the exercise and the meditation. So exercise and meditation, research has demonstrated that they are as effective as antidepressant medication. And I am all for medication. I think whatever we can do right now to really buffer ourselves, we need to explore it. But again, 20 minutes of exercise and like a 10-minute meditation, that's as effective as antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. So I think it's definitely worth us trying. The other thing that I think, just like Diana shared, and I do the exact same thing, is gratitude. And I want to emphasize that it's not because our worlds are always peachy and glorious and glamorous. It's a decision to focus on what's good. And for me, it's almost a reckoning of knowing that right now there's a lot of awful things that are happening. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of isolation. And so it's almost a deliberate practice to say, I'm going to train my mind to look at what is good. And some days I am grateful for my cup of coffee. I am grateful for a warm shower. I am grateful for the most basic of things. But I need to remind myself, and guys, we need to remind ourselves that there's still good and that we can create good. Sometimes my clients will say, Amy, I sat down to do my gratitude list and I had nothing. And I'm like a little bit of a tough coach, executive coach and therapist. And I'll be like, go create something to be grateful for. Go listen to your favorite old school song. Go order your favorite meal, cook your favorite dish. Do something that you can be grateful for. Don't wait for gratitude to just enter your world. Go create it for yourself.
I love that. And I want to hear from the audience what's something that you can do for yourself that just, fills your cup, whatever that is. One thing I saw in your video recently, Amy, you talked about, don't wait until this pandemic's over, before we work on ourselves. You talked about the importance of here. If we can work on here, we can do anything. Can you maybe just highlight a little bit of that?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Linda mentioned nature walks, and that is also backed by research. The fresh air. I know it's very cold here in Canada, but nevertheless, going out and being in nature is so good for anxiety, so good when we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed. Diana, to answer your question, we don't have an end date. I like to think in my mind, I'm okay, April, May, we're done. But we don't know for certain. And I don't want any of us to be betting on our mental health getting better once things improve. I want us to bet on us. I want us to bet on our resilience and our strength and our ability to connect with good resources and make purpose out of this incredibly difficult time. And if we can get through this, guys, you can get through anything. And the other thing is that COVID has really robbed us of all of our, in some ways, our coping strategies, whether it's going to the gym or going for drinks or, having brunch with our friends. And that's been really sad. And I think it totally deserves our grief, and we have the right to mourn that.
Yeah.
But in robbing it, what it's also done is it's kind of just left us with ourselves. It's left us with our values. It's left us with our thoughts. It's left us with our emotions. It's left us with what we've created for ourselves. And if you're not happy with it, don't be ashamed. Welcome to the club. There's a lot of people that are kind of doing a double look at their life and being like, did I get something wrong? Lean into it. If there's something that you can learn from the season, don't be afraid to. If anything, be afraid of not learning from it. This is your time and we can do it. We're resilient creatures.
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about that. How to really find that sense of purpose out of pain. And for pain, it could mean different things for a lot of people, whatever they're going through.
100%. I think to me so this is kind of where the therapist part comes in, right? Mm-hmm. Many people go through different things in life, whether it's trauma, whether it's stress at work. And essentially the whole idea of how do you make purpose out of pain is I've come to understand that life isn't a guaranteed trip with roses and daisies and joy and peace every single day. And so essentially things in life are going to happen that are not on our terms. Things in life are going to happen that are unjust and not equal and not fair. And essentially the only choice that we have as human beings is quite a sacred one. And the choice is that, how do you want to get back up? How do you want to let this pain define you? And I think that that's where people can kind of reclaim their sense of power. Do we want this season to make us more empathic? Do we want this season to remind us that, you know what, I'm not going to take my friendships for granted. I'm not going to take my family for granted. Do we want this season to remind us that, a lot of my identity was completely built on my career, and my career matters, but it can't be my entirety. But that's the beauty about making purpose out of pain, is that ultimately it's up to you. It's not up to Amy. It's not up to Diana. It's up to each of us to say, how do I want this to shape me and to form me? Again, life is going to knock us down. What we have to focus on is, how do you want to get back up? What defines our lives isn't how we go through the highs. It's how we handle the lows. It's how we respond when our face is in the dirt, muddied, and we're crawling back up. That's what our legacy is going to be.
Oh, I love that. Guys, comment on this. What you're saying. It's sometimes we got to have this breakdown to how to break through.
100%. Yes.
To realize how precious life is. Even for me, 2 years ago, I had a serious health issue that I could not work for an entire month. And I really did not take it for granted. I decided, I'm going to do what's going to lift me up and really take care of myself. And it was a major, for me, a breakdown to realize, I can't just focus on work. I was burnt out.
100%. And it's so hard going through it. But the other thing is, we don't learn from easy. We never learn from easy. We always learn from the hardships. And I don't know if we've ever been through anything that's pushed us in this way.
Yeah.
Before it resolves, seriously, guys, let's take inventory of our head and our hearts and our bodies and truly ask ourselves, is there anything that we need to lean into? Is there anything that we can learn so that when we come through this, we are more informed, we know ourselves better, we care about ourselves better, we're a better advocate for ourselves.
I love that. I love that. So what stops people from taking care of themselves or prioritizing themselves?
Oh my goodness, a bazillion things. We're busy, we don't have the time. It's selfish, it's greedy. I need to finish my emails. Oh my goodness gracious, there's a million things. But I think at the core of it, like show of hands, who was taught that self-care was important? I mean, if you were, I'm so jealous because I was not taught that at all. But a lot of us, depending on, for women, we're often taught to take care of others. For men, we're taught that you don't need emotional care. Like, be strong, suck it up, buttercup, and just get through. And also depending on our cultures, like I'm Eastern European. We don't talk about emotions. We don't get emotional. We suck it up and we keep just enduring. And so it's essentially, we have to give ourselves that permission. We can't wait for mom or dad or a partner or a best friend or siblings to look at us and say, you're worthy of taking care of yourself. But you are, and you've got to know that. And so whether we need to surround ourselves with the Dianas of the world or the Amy's of the world or the Brene Browns of the world or the Oprah Winfrey's of the world, to basically get this message of, if you aren't taking care of yourself, we have to be mindful of what kind of foundation that's going to build for you. And do you really want your relationships to flourish in a place where you don't care about yourself? Is your career going to be at its best if you're running on fumes? Are your finances going to be in order when we're so distracted and so disorganized? And it's never too late to kind of like weed out what's not working for you and plant in what's good for you. Never too late.
Never too late. I love that, guys. Type in, put yourself first. I'm seeing this already. Put yourself first. That is so important there.
Yeah.
I love this. So I want to talk about some scenarios here, like people are facing. One is, a lot of people are unemployed. It's a very stressful time. How can people really deal with the stress and anxiety or even just depression from being unemployed for a while? We're talking like 6 months or more here.
I think, so honestly, Diana, I am not into let's just jump into affirmations and visualization. You have every right to be upset. You have every right to almost go through the process of grief, where you are angry, where you feel that helplessness and you feel that hopelessness. But what I often encourage for people is that I want you to think about those emotions and that experience as an island. You can go there, you can visit it, but you cannot stay there. You cannot stay there because nothing will grow from there. And so sometimes for people, it's a real balance of giving themselves the permission to grieve and to feel the uncertainty and to feel the overwhelm, but then we have to come back. We have to come back so that we network, so that we can message people on LinkedIn, so that we can put up our resume. We have to come back so we can put up our hand and say, I need help. Yeah. We have to come back so that we can have those conversations about, okay, guys, how do we fund this family for the foreseeable future? What is our budget going to look like? And actually get back into those tactical, logical steps to keep ourselves safe and to keep ourselves sane. But the other thing about, if we were to just kind of like plant our flag on this uncertainty of when are we next going to get a job, is it really can drain our energy. And we want to be careful to not drink too much of that Kool-Aid of helplessness or hopelessness, because then it can really become paralyzing.
Yeah, for sure. Now I want to flip to the other side, is those who are working, are burnt out, unsatisfied. And I'm hearing this a lot from my clients. Like, I should be grateful for a job, but I'm miserable because there's so many people who lost their job, but then they're burnt out, they're not happy. What's your advice for those who are working but just miserable?
Well, I think that a lot of us with the working from home, it's really have rituals. And again, whether we're talking about unemployment or whether we're talking about job dissatisfaction, seriously consider those tips and techniques, the meditation, the exercise, being in nature, the gratitude, that is good for all of us. But with the job dissatisfaction, people are working constantly. Have a start and a stop time. Have rituals in place. And yes, you can be grateful for your work, but also if you're finding that it's increasingly not a good fit, you can still keep your job and explore what else is out there. Like, you're not forced to stay stuck in misery. Explore choices, explore options.
Yeah.
But I do think that people right now who are working from home feel very, very overworked. And I think we do feel the pressure of, oh my goodness gracious, what if I lose this? And so we're constantly needing to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
And I get that, but make sure that we're operating from that space and proving ourselves when you actually have the energy. And remember that you are going to shine a little extra if you do have that self-care, if you do have that energy, if you do have that vitality.
Yeah, I love that. Going back, taking ourselves. So my last question is the difference between therapy and coaching. I know there are people who have not experienced it, and I'd love to hear from you, like what you see the difference in therapy versus coaching, and when should one go therapy versus coaching?
Yeah, so I do executive coaching. So I think the way that I think about executive coaching is, and there's like lifestyle, there's so many other types, but I kind of think of like a pretty well-oiled machine wanting to reach kind of like their peak performance, like really take it next level. And coaching is a little bit more solution focused. Therapy, I kind of think of it as if your heart is cluttered, if you've had things happen to you that you haven't quite processed, and if you find yourself repeating the same mistakes, so you're burning out over and over again, you're getting in the same bad relationship, you're having the same conflicts with your family, that's for therapy. That's to sort of, coaching is a little bit more focused on the future, and therapy can be really helpful in reweeding the past.
Yes, I love that difference between past versus future.
Yeah.
Yes, actually. So one final question. What are your final words of encouragement for our audience here? We have an amazing, beautiful audience right now. What's your final words of encouragement for them?
Flip the script. Flip the script. I'm going to take care of the kids. I'm going to call my friend. I'm going to try not to be so lonely, and then I'll take care of myself. I'm going to do my emails. Then I'll do my self-care. Flip the script. Start your day with you. Before you feed anybody, before you answer any email, before you answer anybody's request, feed yourself first. I know it sounds selfish, but I'm telling you, in the long run, it will feed not only yourself, but your community in ways that you could never, ever imagine. We'll keep talking, but let's start acting on that self-care.
Oh, love it. Flip the script, guys. Please type in your key learnings here, the key nuggets from Amy. It was so good. I love it, love it, love it. So Amy, where can people find you?
On Instagram, Toronto underscore wellness, and then torontowellnesscounseling.com. We have a team of beautiful therapists. Come check us out.
Yes, guys, please follow Amy on her Instagram. It's beautiful. She has a beautiful Instagram. Just please follow her and check out her videos as well. And I'm so grateful that you said yes. I know we literally just met last week. I found you on LinkedIn. I was like, I need to contact you.
My absolute pleasure, Diana. You're a joy. You're light, and I hope you guys have a great day. With the rest of the beautiful speakers. Okay.
Thank you so much. You take care.
Take such good care.
Now.
Bye.
Oh, wasn't that amazing, guys? That was so good. Oh my gosh, 20 minutes. I just felt lit up already. That was like, I think it was I love all the tips that Amy gave. It was like the theme of taking care of ourselves, putting ourselves first. It was so good. So next up, we have my friend, David Mendoza. David is a Toronto-based educator and the director of Orbit 5, an edtech startup empowering international students to launch meaningful careers, keep their mental health on point, and thrive in their new home countries. He's built a global community of support where students get together to navigate COVID-19 related challenges through weekly webinars, events, and one-on-one coaching. An advocate of impactful educational approaches that take the learning beyond the classroom and help students think critically about their life and career choices. David is here today to talk about his topic on You Are Not Alone. So let's give a round of applause to David. Hey, David.
Hey, Diana, how's it going?
Awesome. So great to have you again. We're speaking again.
Much. So good to see you. Our first collaboration of the year. So good to see you, and so good to be here to talk about this incredible topic. And congratulations on putting this together. It's amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So why don't we start off? Like, why are you so passionate about mental health? What's your story?
Yeah. So you know what? Yesterday, I watched a LinkedIn Live with Alton Belzak and Carrot Twig, and they were talking about the importance of storytelling. So I want to start with a story on how I became so passionate about mental health. 4 years ago, I got my first teaching gig at post-secondary here in Ontario. And I was teaching a class called Professional Communications. The class, when it was offered to me, the manager of that department told me, David, you're going to have a very diverse student population. You're going to have folks with mental health challenges, with addiction challenges, folks who might have incarceration history, homelessness history. Some of them still live in shelters, all that stuff. Are you up for the challenge? And I said, you know what? I thought to myself, this is going to be so hard because I don't know much about mental health. I don't know how to, I haven't worked a lot with at-risk populations, but sure, I wanna go for the challenge. So when I started that class, I thought I cannot go into that classroom with an authoritarian attitude. That's not my style anyways, but I'm like, I need to make sure that these people who are giving themselves a second chance see me as an ally and as part of the team, not as a teacher, not as a professor, as someone who is part of the team and rooting for them to meet common goals. So one of the projects that we had to do for that class was a presentation on whatever topic they wanted to talk about regarding their stories, their hobbies, whatever, right? Have in mind that a lot of these folks, they had never done a presentation in their lives, right? Never, because of the struggles that they grew up with, because some of them spent their 20s in prison, well, many factors, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was beautiful to see when they started talking in front of the audience and talking about their passions and the thing that they wanted to educate us on. One of the students came to me and she said, David, I cannot do this project. I cannot go and present. And I told her, okay, so why don't we co-facilitate? And she told me that's going to make things worse. I'm going to be feeling more self-conscious, more nervous. So I told her, okay, what do you propose? And she said to me, you know what, David, look, at this point, mentally, I cannot do this. Maybe in a month, I will be in a place where I can speak in front of 1,000 people, no problem. But right now I can't. So, okay, what do you propose? And she said to me, what if I write you a report on my mental illness? Will you accept that? And I'm like, absolutely, 100%. So she wrote to me a report, 10 pages, 15 pages, explaining to me her journey, her story, educating me on her mental health illness and depression, right? And that was something that really impacted me. And that's something that, you know, I wanna continue working with these populations because they are misunderstood. They are highly stigmatized. People are scared of them, and there's no reason to be scared of them, right? We had an incredible class 4 years ago. We built a family in that environment, you know, and the work that we have to do is combat that stigma so that folks who are facing these challenges can thrive and can contribute to society, because at the end of it, that's the only thing that they want to do. They want to be respected, they want to be accepted, they want to feel valued, and they just want to contribute to the growth of our societies. So that's how my passion for mental health started.
I love that. And I want to hear from the audience here, right? If, you know, David just shared a story, if you have a story to tell in terms of your mental health struggles or living with like mental illness, please share it with us as well. You know, this is why we're having these like real, raw, vulnerable conversations. It's difficult, but the fact that, you know, this person who, you know, wrote about it, to educate you about it as well, that got you like so moved by it. So, you know, if you guys have a story to share, like feel free to share this with us as well. We're here to support each other and have this open, honest conversation. So let's move on in terms of why should everyone strive for mental health?
Diana, everyone should strive for mental health. Again, because there's some misconceptions. So when people think about mental health, people only think about the illness, right? So, but in reality, we all should strive for mental health, because without mental health, we cannot do anything. And I'm going to tell you another story on, and now being vulnerable, like you said just a few seconds ago, on how I started my year. I finished the year on a very high note. You know that we had our collaborations and we had like incredible work. We did incredible work. This year, January 4, you know, I was ready to go full force to continue the work that I'm doing with my community. And I got up with a massive migraine, right? And I'm like, wow, like this is really bad. I was so healthy in 2020. I didn't even have a cold, but this migraine, it lasted like for 2 days, and it really impacted me emotionally as well, because I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to sleep, right? So then by Wednesday, I was feeling better, and then we had our webinar on Thursday, I remember, and then that night I had a meeting with my team at Orbit 5. And it was incredible because we came back together after 2 weeks hiatus, and it was great. But then I remember you when you said that you wanted to define a word for the year for yourself. And then I did the same exercise. And I'm like, okay, what's going to be my word for the year? And based on this personal experience that I just had physically and emotionally, my word for the year is going to be health.
Health.
Yeah? And my top priority is going to be my mental health, because without my mental health, I cannot do anything. I started doubting my work. Why did I get into this? It's so much work that I have to do. You know this. There's so much work that we have to do. We don't have a 9 to 5 schedule. We're working until 11 at night. Friday, I was working until 2 in the morning, right? So I doubted myself. I doubted my purpose. I'm like, why didn't you just like stay in your job and continue with that routine? So you start having a lot of inside battles when your mental health is not on point. Yeah. So that's why we all should strive for mental health, because it's a positive state of mind, right?
Yeah.
And with our mental health, we are unstoppable. And we have to have these conversations and combat that stigma and that taboo.
I love that. With our mental health, we are unstoppable.
Unstoppable, I'm telling you.
We are unstoppable. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Last week also had this migraine headache, and I realized I just had to take care of myself as well. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, the chats are coming through. It's so fast. I don't even notice. Like a lot of people are chatting through. This is amazing. So I want to ask.
I love what you said here. Caring and non-judgmental to each other. That's massive.
To not be judgmental, right? So let's go to talk about this. How can we really talk about our mental health challenges, right? Because there is a stigma. Oftentimes we may be suffering from silence. I mean, right now there's probably people here who are listening who are not commenting because they don't want to be seen. You know, how can we really have the courage to talk?
Yeah, it's a very difficult conversation to have, because you have to put yourself in a high state of vulnerability, and it's not easy to talk about your own struggles and your own problems. So the first thing that you have to do to be able to talk openly about this is to identify a situation or a moment where you're not feeling 100%, and find a support network. Could be your friends, could be your family, but sometimes your friends or your family, you cannot do that because sometimes you come from places where talking about mental health is highly stigmatized. You might be perceived as weak, or as you don't have value, etc. So, but by acknowledging that something is not 100%, but something is off, you can start having this conversation with yourself that you need to talk about this. And that's why the topic of our conversation, you're not alone. By understanding that if you are not feeling 100%, it's not only you. There's millions of people across the world who are going through the same situation. So support network, community is very important, right? If you don't have, or you don't feel comfortable with your family or your closest friends to talk about these things, then you need to find other resources. For example, if you're a student, go check the resources available within your institution that provide support to students when it comes to mental health. If you, for example, live in a city like Toronto, go check out institutions like CAMH, where you can have conversation with, like, for example, the campaign of Bell Talk, where you can call a number if you're having suicidal thoughts and talk about those things, right? So it's acknowledging the thing first and then talk about that. And I think once you start talking about that, you feel more comfortable, and then you don't feel as embarrassed or as ashamed, as shy to share that story with other people. If you manage to achieve that point and you start having the conversation with other people around you, then other people might relate to you, and they say, wow, like what David is sharing right now, actually I can relate, because I was experiencing something very similar a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, and I have all those emotions bottled up. And now I don't feel that I'm alone. I don't feel ashamed, because I know that I'm not the only one, so I can openly talk about that. And then that's how you create a support network that can help you navigate the mental health challenges that you might go through. Remember that 3 in 4 people are going to experience a mental health related challenge at some point during their life. So it's important to talk about these things.
Yeah. Can you, sorry, I can't hear you yet. David, can you guys hear David still? I just want to make sure here. Is it just me?
Can you hear me?
Just want to make sure here.
Can you hear me okay?
You guys can hear? Okay, so David, I'm just going to ask you another question.
Hear me now? I cannot hear you. Diana, I cannot hear you. Oh man.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you?
You can hear me? Okay. So I'm going to ask you the question is for people, how to overcome loneliness. How can people overcome loneliness?
That's a very, very, very good question, and I think it ties in with the answer from my last answer, by creating a support network, by being aware of who are the people around you that you can count on, right? Again, it's hard. It's hard to talk about these things because there's a lot of taboo and stigma still, even in Canada. It's a progressive country, and we've been talking about this for maybe the past 7, 8 years more openly about it. There's still a lot of stigma that make people feel lonely, right? So find a support network among your friends, among your family, among your classmates, among your professors, among your coworkers, and find communities, right, to avoid loneliness. So for example, think about things that you enjoy doing in your life. If you like video games, for example, find communities of video gamers. I had a student 2 years ago, and she was very, very extremely depressed, a lot of social anxiety, but she loved video games. So she found a community of gamers that she would be able to go and meet on a weekly basis, and that made a huge difference. And she was not feeling alone anymore, right? If this is another student who was an at-risk student, so find community, find your support network, so that you can overcome the feeling of loneliness.
Okay, so I couldn't hear anything from you, David, but I'm guessing the audience could hear. I'm not sure what's wrong. I don't want to turn off my setting here because I don't want to lose the stream.
Yeah.
You can still hear me?
Yes.
You can still hear me? Okay, so something's wrong with my side here, but I'm going to keep asking another question here before I either still have a question. I want to ask you the question on how can people manage their emotions and triggers? Okay, I'm going to be back, guys. I'll be back. So I'm going to do something, but you keep talking, okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so emotions and triggers. Again, I think we can come to a point of when you experience a hard emotion on yourself, like anger or something, then acknowledge that first. Avoid going on denial with your emotions and the things that trigger those emotions, because that is the first thing that you have to do. Acknowledge that something is going on. If you take that first step, if you acknowledge that something is off, then you can work towards taking steps to overcome that situation. So that's the first thing. Acknowledge that, then look for the source of that trigger, that emotion. What is it? Maybe it's something, a past trauma that you lived in your childhood, that you have not able to work on to solve. And then once you find that resource, start looking for the options to overcome that. Try to combat those negative voices that are coming to you that can hinder your progression into managing this. And also, if there's not a chance for you to manage this on your own, you need to go outside and reach out for help, so that you can talk to other people that can help you. Sometimes you will need professional counseling. Sometimes you need a therapy like Amy, and the stories that she was mentioning a few minutes ago. There are many programs in companies that cover that through your OHIP or whatever you are. It's like fun if your company covers that, and invest on that. Invest in having on conversation with someone like Amy, because she's your ally, and she can help you navigate those situations. So acknowledge, find the source of those triggers, and then talk to someone that can help you navigate them.
I love that. I love that. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. I am sorry that you couldn't hear anything. I wonder if the people in the audience could actually.
I think it was, I don't know, something about the browser today. It's definitely testing my stress on a whole other level today on Mental Health Day. But you know what? That's with life, right? We have a beautiful audience right now chiming in. So that's amazing. Thank you for, rolling with the punches here. So another question I have is around bounce back, how to bounce back after career setbacks. So I know you work with a lot of international students, but also people who may have had to think that they have to start over again in a new country. What's your advice for them in terms of how to really bounce back?
Take all setbacks as learning, and acknowledge that there's going to be setbacks as part of your life, not only today, but tomorrow, in a month, etc. So take things from learning, and go with the mindset of career that that is gonna be a process that you're gonna enjoy. That you don't go to the job search thinking that it's gonna be daunting. Don't go to the job search thinking it's gonna be traumatic. Don't go there thinking it's gonna be a negative experience. On the contrary, think about the people that you can connect with, that can help you get some insights into, the kind of roles that you wanna get. Also, again, very important to get back from career setbacks. I think is really important when you are in the job search process and that to have an accountability buddy, right? Or again, be part of a community of support that can help you stay accountable on your decisions, the actions that you take, so that you can overcome and get back stronger from those setbacks. We all have experienced career setbacks. Like no one is exempted from that. It's just, again, like find the community, find the support, and doing the work that you need to invest your time and your energy in finding things that will bring purpose and meaning to your life.
Yeah,
especially now
absolutely.
in times of COVID, right?
For sure, for sure. So, what are your final words of encouragement for those who are listening? What's your final words of encouragement for them there?
So before I said that, you know what? I watched on Netflix this past weekend a movie called Hillbilly Elegy, and it's very related to mental health and career as well, because one of the people in the starring roles, she has a massive mental health meltdown, a lot of addictions and that, and her son has to cope with all that while this person is looking for work, right? So I recommend that you watch that movie. Last words of encouragement: understand that you're not alone. Understand that at some point there's going to be, especially in these times of uncertainty, there are going to be days where you don't feel your best, and that's okay. Yeah, and talk openly about it. Fight the stigma. Help us combat the stigma. If you see someone on the street who is going through homelessness, don't call them the crazies, right? Put yourself in their shoes and think, how would you feel if your mom, your sister, your spouse, your child ends up in that situation? A lot of those people, you don't know the story behind them. A lot of those people have had massive careers of success, but they have succumb to an addiction or to a mental health illness, right? So help us combat the stigma by putting yourself in other people's shoes.
Oh, I love that. Drop judgment. Be kind to one another, right?
That's it.
Show that we care. So thank you so much, David.
Thank you,
I really appreciate your message and for just being a great advocate. You're always being a great advocate for your students, your clients, and I really appreciate our friendship as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Much love. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Oh, wasn't that so good, guys, with David? That was so amazing. Thank you so much there. And it was so great seeing so many of you here right now, like live with us. And next up, we have Shahrukh Shah, who's going to share with us on living with mental illness. Shahrukh is a chartered professional accountant who lives with bipolar disorder. He spent almost 15 years at PwC and now runs his own independent consulting practice. Shahrukh was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder in late 2016 at the age of 34 and navigated the challenges of learning to live and thrive with the condition. Since his diagnosis, Shahrukh has become a passionate mental health advocate and has recently joined an advisory council with his local branch of the Canadian Mental Health Association, where he hopes to share his perspectives based on his lived experience. So I'm really excited to have Shahrukh here. So let's give a round of applause to welcome him to the stage.
Hi, Diana. How are you?
Good. Great meeting you, Shak. I read your article last week. Like literally it was just last week. I typed in #Let's Talk Day and I came across your article and I just felt so compelled to reach out because I really wanted to have someone who can really share their perspective of what's it like, living or coping through like mental illness. So thank you so much for being here with us and being so brave and courageous as well.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Diane. I really applaud you for being as passionate as you are about the topic as well. I know all of us appreciated the conversation so far have been outstanding, and I'm humbled in the presence of the speakers as well as everyone in the audience today.
Yeah. So let's start with a question about, What were the obstacles that you faced when you were first diagnosed with bipolar disorder? Did it impact your work? What were those obstacles there?
Yeah, for me, I think acceptance of my diagnosis was a big barrier for myself. In late 2016, as you mentioned, I was diagnosed with bipolar. But what that story doesn't tell is really it was due to an episode of psychosis that had never really happened to me before. At the time, I had a lot of substance abuse issues. That there was a lot of confusion between what the doctor was telling me versus what my friends and family were telling me in terms of, oh, maybe if you cut back on the alcohol and drugs, that might cure you and you'll be okay. These doctors don't really know you. We've known you for 34 years. And so I think, really navigating through that period and trying to reconcile all of that and kind of what my mind and body were telling me was a really difficult period, and something I really had to get my head around. And so that first year after the diagnosis, I would say, was a real battle. I went back to work after 3 months. In hindsight, I probably should have taken another 3 to 6 months off. It's the balance of feeling pressure to go back to work for yourself, what your employer's going to think about you. I had a second episode a year later, at work. One, quite frankly, that could have got me fired. And it was really my wake-up call and my aha moment. I have to tackle this head on and really own it, and understand that no one understands my mind and body better than I do, and I need to ensure I find the right balance of the doctor's opinions and my opinions and family and friends' opinions, and it's on me ultimately. So that acceptance really was a huge element for me to truly get my mind around it and truly start to understand my mind and body and how they intersected with one another.
Yeah. And did you talk to anyone about it, like any of your family or work?
Yeah, I was. I think I was really fortunate to have a strong support system with friends and family. I was admitted. I went straight to emergency, admitted into the hospital for 2 weeks on the first episode, and I had 1 or 2 people visiting me every day. There were people in there, quite frankly, for the whole 2 weeks that didn't have anyone visiting them. And that made such a difference.
Yeah.
And so even although I went back to work earlier than I think I should have, I had been with PwC to that point 11 years. I had a lot of people that I considered close personal friends of mine, even at PwC. And it was kind of that intersect of employer and family in my mind. And so, initially it was a bit of embarrassment, because, my first episode was 2 weeks away from my partnership interview. It was supposed to be the culmination of all the hard work. And, it was embarrassment. It was, why did this happen when I should be the happiest I've ever been in my life? And so it was hard initially, but I think as I was opening up to people and slowly really starting to open up to people, not only therapeutic for myself, but I really feel it really drove that vulnerability and trust in our relationships. And I was able to start to open up to more and more people over time. And even, my boss who was sponsoring me to get into the partnership, it was really a relationship initially that I thought was based on, I serve you, you serve me. Let's go make some money together. And he had a conversation with me, a year later, and he was like, honestly, Shak, there were nights where I cried myself to sleep thinking about what happened
Yeah.
You know.
Shaq, I don't know if you see this, but a lot of people are just acknowledging how brave and courageous you are right now for sharing your story. So thank you for that. I'm hearing a little echo. I don't know if it's because do you have your headset on or no?
I do not.
Yeah, it's a little bit of echoey on my end as I'm hearing you there. See if this would be better. Let's see. But yeah, people are saying that you're so brave here. Let's see if this works. Okay, so I want to ask you, what's the stigma with mental illness? Do you feel? Let's see if I can hear it. Do you feel the perception of you was impacted by it?
You know, that's a great question. Can you hear me okay? Is it fine? Can you hear me?
You guys okay? No echo for audience? Okay, no echo for audience. Okay, so you can keep on. Okay, so maybe it's my end.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? You know, I think, as I was saying, I was a couple weeks away from my partnership interview, and you know, when I first came back to work, you know, my head was telling me, what do I need to do to get back into that partnership process as quickly as possible and push this thing aside? But my heart and gut were telling me that something was seriously wrong with me, and I needed to reconcile in my mind the fact that I needed to address what was wrong with me, which could and potentially would push me further away from the partnership process. And, you know, that was a very difficult thing for me to overcome. I had a lot of anxiety over it, felt I was disappointing people. But, you know, ultimately in the conversations I was having at work, like, people just wanted me to be right. Like, partnership it was great, but it really wasn't what was important at that time. And it was through those conversations that, you know, I was really able to redefine who I was and what I brought to the organization. And, you know, I went from, you know, anyone that knows me in the early parts of my career knows I drove myself, I drove my staff. That's who I was. I was the least empathetic person you ever met. But really what bipolar gave me was the gift of empathy, to truly empathize not only with what I was going through, but with what other people were going through. And through that journey, you know, I kind of redefined my role in the organization to say, yes, I understand productivity. I understand driving revenues is important, but you know, my gift of relating to people, people development, being a mental health advocate, like, these are things I want to focus on. And I just pushed forward, and my boss kind of gave me that autonomy to say, you know, you write your script, and, you know, that's the story I created for myself. But ultimately, from a PwC lens, it wasn't a story that was going to, quote unquote, make me a partner, but I was feeling a lot more fulfilled in my work.
Yeah. Denise said here, you are much more important than a partnership. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Denise here. So let's talk about some of those lessons here. You talked about, you know, taking care of yourself as well, the lessons learned on your road to recovery.
Yeah. You know, I think really do not ignore your body's reaction and your mind's reaction to what's going on. You know, a lot of times at work, or even in my personal life, you know, when I drove myself very hard, whether it was working too hard or partying too hard, I kind of just ignored my body. Like, my body just shut down at times. Like, I'd go comatose on weekends, and I just kind of ignore that as my body needs to recharge, and let's get back at it on the weekdays. And, you know, it's really understanding the connection of your mind and body, and don't ignore those signs in your system. The other thing too is, I know it's difficult. I know it's hard. I know the feelings that you could feel ashamed of. Should you be better? Should you be able to get over something? But I promise you, the more vulnerable that you can be in the relationships that you trust and can open up in those relationships, like it's a game changer. Like it really helps you talk through that. For me, for example, I've taken the approach of not using a psychologist. I have a psychiatrist to monitor myself, to monitor my medications, to ensure the mechanics and the physiology all kind of comes together. But I've taken the approach not to have a psychologist, but in doing so, I've also been a lot more open with my friends and family. And it's almost talk therapy in a kind of scripted format, right? So
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I want to ask, because I'm sure there are people here who are listening that they may be going through a mental illness themselves and looking for a job. I guess what advice do you have for them in terms of how to overcome, I guess, the stigma of mental illness while still looking for a job?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? Where, I think what people really have to do, and again, I'm single. I don't have a lot of financial burden in my life, and take that kind of for what it's worth as well. Is, I think the more you can make the decision from your heart and for yourself, and I've always heard the kind of term treat work as a calling, and you'll never work a day in your life. And the more you can kind of move towards that, the more comfortable I think you'll feel in your skin as you go through a mental illness. But that being said, I also understand the flip side of that, that there are financial responsibilities, there are ambitions that might drive you, and understanding how those stressors play in with what you're tackling from a mental health perspective. And, a lot of the larger corporations, a lot of them do have programs in place, whether it's providing for counseling services or allowing short-term disabilities or other leave of absence programs while you kind of tackle different things and work through that and think through that. But the more trust you can have with your boss and your coworkers, I promise you, the happier you'll be. And it's never easy to work through mental illness, but it does make it easier.
Yeah. Having that conversation there. And I mean, this ties into this question about I think that follow up it is how to ask for that support or accommodations from an employer. And I believe, I don't know if Linda is here, but she's hosting, guys, another talk this Sunday on mental health accommodations. So for those who are interested, Linda, feel free to share yours in here as well, specifically on that. I don't know if you have any quick advice just from your own experience of asking for support or accommodations from employer that you can share.
Yeah, I think it's understand what your employer's programs are, but it's have that discussion with your boss, right? To me, one of the biggest drawbacks and one of the biggest setbacks is I don't think bosses are equipped with the training and the emotional intelligence training they need to be able to work with their employees on when they're facing whether it's minor or severe issues. And, I think a lot of the larger corporates might have formal programs, but for me, for example, I didn't even know I was going through a psychotic episode. I was forced into a hospital and automatically put on leave. So I allowed myself to get to a point where I didn't recognize in myself that something was happening, and I was forced into a hospital. And had to work backwards. So to the point that you can kind of be more proactive, and hopefully you have that relationship with your boss or HR manager, someone with that emotional intelligence that understands that even if there's not a formal program or whatever it is, to work through something that makes sense for you to work through that and hopefully not get to a stage where you're forced into a leave.
Yeah. That's good advice there. So what are some of your final words of encouragement for those who may be struggling right now or maybe struggling in silence? What's your word of encouragement for them?
Yeah, I would say don't give up. I know it seems difficult. I've been there. I felt the pain. There were months where I couldn't get out of bed. But don't give up. Talk to people. people on this call, talk to people, look me up on LinkedIn, drop me a note, it's just, don't give up. You mean something to everyone on this call, to society. The world is a better place with you in it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That was just so heartfelt. I hope you guys feel this. I'm feeling emotional as well. So I really hope you guys, those who are listening to this, feel free to reach out to Shak as well. That's how I met him, was just, I read his story, on LinkedIn last week. He wrote an article about it, and really wanted to invite him to come talk to us. And I just really want to acknowledge you of how brave and courageous as well to talk publicly, about this on live with an audience here. So thank you so much for that. And I look forward to staying in touch with you. And I'm sure you're going to be doing amazing things and spreading the word of the importance of mental health with your involvement in mental health work right now.
Yeah, no, thank you again for organizing this. You are awesome.
Thank you so much. You take care.
You too.
Oh, that was so good, right? To just hear from, a personal experience as well. I really felt that it was quite emotional for me to listen to his story. So I really appreciate that there. So next up, we have Sophie Turner, who is a career and brand strategist at Brazen & Co. She's going to be talking to us about reframing your life and career. So a little bit about Sophie. Sophie is an experienced marketer, brand developer, and business growth leader. Sophie brings her depth of expertise into the coaching space, where she works with executives and leaders to advance their careers and develop their mental health agility. She has worked for some of the top brands in the world, including Nike, American Express, Habitat for Humanity, the Canadian Olympic Committee, and most recently with the Smith School of Business at Queen's University, overseeing executive MBA, career programming, and coaching. Much of her work focuses on enabling others to be in relationship with themselves, others, and for their mental health and physical health. She is currently working towards her Master's of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, focused on the intersection of career development for young adults recovering from mental health challenges. So let's welcome Sophie. Hi, Sophie.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad we got connected.
Yes.
got connected. This was on the weekend. I saw your post on Facebook that you're doing this research, and I reached out, and I'm so glad that you decided to say yes.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. It's been an honor just to listen to the previous speakers. So thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. So my first question is, why are you so passionate about mental health, and what's your story?
Yeah, so when you and I connected and you said, oh, you only have a couple minutes, to share, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. I'm super passionate about it because it's hit us at home with our kids. And as a parent, if you've watched your children going through their challenges around mental health, when they don't know how to express themselves, that's really hard to watch. And so we've experienced quite a bit of ups and downs here in our household. And through the journey that we took with one of our sons in particular, it took years. It took years to find him the right kind of support. And that actually was quite upsetting, especially for someone who's very resourceful. The fact that we couldn't get him in somewhere sooner just didn't feel right, especially living in a country like we do. And so I thought, it started to actually come into my career. I left corporate, I went into coaching. I started to work with people around how their mental health was manifesting for them physically. And then on the other side, I was working with families and some youth. And now with entering my master's, it's just everything's coming full circle. And I'm excited to see where it might net out, because I want to help change and influence some of the gaps that we're facing for young adults in particular.
Yes. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that personal story. So what are some of those, I guess, alternative ways for people to launch a career? Because I know this is something in your area that you're passionate about right now with your research as well. I mean, to give you a little context about that and some suggestions that you have for those who are looking to launch a career?
Yeah. So if you're just starting out, really take inventory of what you're passionate about. For some people, it's really hard to uncover what that looks like. Take courses. So one of the elements that I share with young people is maybe look at some micro-credentialing, sign up for a class, find out if you're creative, if you're analytical, and see where your hobbies as a child can perhaps draw you into a potential career. Another way to look at going into something is volunteer. Even when I'm working with executive level MBA students, they still seek out volunteer opportunities in order to get some experience that they can then put on a resume. So volunteer in several different places, because you never know what's going to resonate for you and what's going to make your heart sing. So I think it's really important to try not one thing, but several different things. And those are just a few suggestions.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious to know, like, for those who, as a parent, if they were trying to support their child as well, who's going through something like this, what advice do you have for them on how they can provide that support to them?
Support to their child?
Yeah, support the child, like trying to launch a career. Yeah.
Listen without judgment. I've got 2 kids. One is interested in school and the other is like, Mom, that's not my path. And so just really be there for them. Listen to the words that they say, what they don't say as well. It's really important from that perspective. Encourage them, help sign them up for things, expose them to people, teach them how to network. One of the things that I'll mention later, don't rely on your resume. How they're going to get jobs and start their career is by knocking on doors, literally. Network is how they're going to transfer their life experience so far into the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about reframing. How to reframe your career in a way that supports your mental wellness.
So when I start working with somebody, and perhaps some of your listeners are familiar with this, they put on the resume, I've got X number of years, I'm very efficient, I get things out on time, on budget, very traditional type of language that way. The best way for you to land something new is to reframe how your experience can help solve that pain point for the company, the industry, the person that you're meeting, interviewing, or networking with through storytelling. And that might look like, again, going back to do that inventory of what are your skills and see if there's any clustering of themes. Are you really good at problem solving and organizing and thinking of different ways from a creative perspective? Have you always been someone who likes to analyze and really dig in and research? See if there's a way you can cluster some experiences that way so that you can reframe how you address someone. For example, I use this example all the time. When I'm meeting someone for the very first time, and it might be a job I might be interested in, again, most of my background has been in brand and communication. So when someone says, hey, tell me about yourself, why are you here? If it's a networking event. And I usually start with not what my title is or anything like that. I start with, I love white walls. Give me a white wall and I can create a program, a project, an initiative from the grassroots level all the way up to the Olympic level. And I love doing that because it's just something I'm excited about. And so when I'm able to bring that passion into just that little soundbite, it says a lot about the different pieces that I bring to the table. Instead of saying, oh, I'm creative and I can launch projects. You need to put emphasis into that story.
Yeah, I love that. And what you're saying, like when you just gave that example, I can picture it.
Exactly. And that's how you resonate with people. That's what the storytelling piece is about.
Yeah.
I usually go on to say it's your narrative to own, and you need to own your vibe.
Let's talk about that. That's your saying. What does it mean to own your vibe?
You need to own your vibe. I know I'm not for everybody. Yeah. You're not for everybody, Diana. Your participants here, they're not for everybody, and that's okay. Own what makes you you, what lights you up, because there are going to be other people in the room that are dying to meet you. Owning your vibe doesn't have one clean definition, if you will. It's about not compromising on who you are. It's about going to that interview and really bringing your personal strengths out. Not because you think that's what they want to hear, but because that's important to you. You don't want to have that misalignment to your values. And so I think that's really important in this day and age when from reading some of the comments today, you've gotten a few people here that are currently really looking for work. So how do you maintain your mental health when you perhaps might be desperate enough to keep the lights on at home? How are you going to find that sort of job? That really being true to yourself and owning your vibe is a huge way to help, I guess, manage your mental health that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, one of my favorite sayings, own your greatness. And for me, it's also about like greatness, meaning like believing in yourself, like really owning what you're really good at and you naturally excel at as well. And that's going to attract the right people, right? When you own that. Or I also like to talk about right now, like owning your own value, right? Because when you own your own value and you believe in your value and you recognize your value and voice your value, that's what's going to attract the right type of employer as well.
Yeah. Because you don't want to start with a company. So sometimes I talk people out of going to work for X company because it's this big, sexy title. But if it doesn't align with who you are and what your goals are, you might be able to do the job, but you're going to be miserable in 6 months or 9 months. And that's going to reflect on your work and on your personal brand. So how you go from one job to another is all through networking. The piece of paper is just the formality. It really is through that networking. So you want to make sure that everything is in alignment to you as much as possible. Have your own criteria even. Don't just rely on what the employer wants to hear.
Yeah, I'm big on having a criteria because what I found as a recruiter, for me to find the right person, I need to have an assessment criteria. So I always tell clients that you need to have a criteria of what you're looking for so that you can evaluate against it when you're evaluating these opportunities. And I love asking people, like, when someone, presents you an opportunity on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your interest level, right? In terms of, is it from a 1 to 10, and what's missing there, right? And I'm curious to know, like, it's just off the cuff here is, because it is a competitive market right now. We know it's a very competitive market, and oftentimes I see, when candidates or clients, they see an opportunity, like, oh, I should just take it, but it may not really align with what they really want or the heading, or they may need to really commute far, when things go back to normal. What's your advice for them when like an opportunity really doesn't align? Like, do they take it, or what's your perspective on that?
That's not a simple yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad type of answer. Everything is situational. If you really need to keep the lights on in your house, feed your family, you're going to evaluate that differently. But let's just pretend for illustration right now that that's not the case, that you're just wanting to leave the job you're in for a progression up somewhere else. It really comes back to, how will the job help you grow? How is it going to help you get closer to your goals? Will it be in alignment with who you are? When we go back, it's actually, we're moving forward. We're not going back to what it used to be. So how do you want to step into that new space with greater intention? And I work with people to help them learn also how to decode a job description. A job description might say, here are the 6 things we're looking for, and check, 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 check. But really, don't look at that piece yet. Look at how they talk about their company. Look at, really understand how they're describing what your interaction is going to be with your stakeholders. And then see if you bring those skills to the table. If it's about managing partnerships and stakeholders, and again, just for illustration, do you bring the skill of conflict communications, prioritizing, influencing decisions? If so, and there's something that appeals to you about the company, great. What can you learn from taking that step? Again, that's going to get you closer to the next step.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great advice there. So let's talk about another reframe here in terms of how to reframe your mindset when you're in an unhappy situation. This
Oh,
could
and how many
be
of those do
anything.
we have? Totally. You know, the coach in me always says, well, what's the good in this unhappy situation? There's something there. There's probably a colleague you sit beside, or just, you know, maybe your office is beside the park and you get to sit there and it's the only time you have your own time. Whatever that might be, is really understand for you what is good about that opportunity, because that's what's going to keep you motivated and coming back every day until you find whatever that next step is. Second, another way to navigate an unhappy situation, is there a skill you want to develop? And can this be your sandbox? Instead of looking at it as a negative environment, how can you use that environment instead to play and develop a skill and hone it, so that by the time you get called for that interview for whatever that next job might be, you've already practiced the skill a little bit. So I think that's another way that you can perhaps look at that unhappy situation.
Yeah, that's great advice there. My other question is around, let me see here. Oh, yes. What to do when overwhelmed or burnt out? And I'm thinking right now, the scenario where right now, if we put in a scenario where people are working, but they also have like kids at home and, you know, just lots going on, lots to juggle right now. They just feel like they're just depleted. You know, what's your advice for them?
A few of your other speakers said this already. Tap into your friends, tap into the network you have. And it's not just to have them hear you, but it's also to have them help you disrupt the story that you're telling yourself. The situation that you're in, when you're in overwhelm and burnt out, sometimes you can replay the situation over and over and over again, and you spiral even further. So I think one key thing is really stepping into environments or activities. For me, I love to do woodworking. So when I'm feeling exhausted and grumpy, I had a team meeting the other day, and one of the most lovely people on our call, she was saying something beautiful, and in my head, I'm like, you know, sort of thing. And that was the trigger for me. I'm like, I know I'm burnt out, I'm overwhelmed. So I left, and I actually took some self-care. So to find those opportunities to do something for you that helps disrupt whatever's feeding that overwhelm and burnt out moment.
Yeah, I love that. You know, do something different, right? Instead of just doing the same thing, you got to do something, disrupt it, change the rhythm, whatever that looks like, right? Just something doesn't have to be work related. I had a client yesterday who I asked him, like, you know, do you have time for self-care? And he works crazy hours in consulting. He's like, no. And he's just on the verge of burnt out right now. And they're like, you know, there's nothing else we can do right now but job search. Let's just do something for you. Just self-care. That's the only homework is self-care. Yeah, that's the most important thing. Yeah. So what are your final words of encouragement?
I'm going to echo a little bit. You know, people want you around. They are hungry to find you. Own your vibe. Don't let go of it. Keep trying. This is a really weird time, but COVID is also creating some wonderful opportunities to be able to work from home and find different ways to create your income in your life. And then one last thing I'll offer is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If, you know, COVID has taught us so many things, that if you only had, you know, like all of your eggs working at, you know, a bank or wherever it was, diversify. You can upskill, get some micro credentials under your belt, have other tools in your toolbox to remain relevant, because that's what our environment is right now, is how do you remain relevant?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Sophie. I love this. And so where can people find you? I put it up here if you just want to share where people can find you.
On LinkedIn, absolutely. Sophie Turner. Please connect with me. Happy to have the conversation with people offline.
Yeah, feel free to reach out, Sophie. Like you have amazing experience, Sophie. Like, the corporate and working with clients. So I'm so glad that we got to connect. And I want to wish you all the best with your research and your master's as well. Like,
Thank
I'm
you.
excited to support you as well in the findings that you're what you're going to put together there.
Actually, I'm meeting with one of your other speakers next week to talk about it.
Oh, nice. See, networking, power of networking.
The power of
Right?
networking.
This is where I want to encourage you guys, like for those who are here listening as well, like I hope you're like meeting some new folks, like just through the connections, all the conversations as well. Like this is the power of live events like this, is you really get to expand your network and support each other as well. So thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Everyone.
You take care.
Bye.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. That was so fun. Okay. So next up, last but not least, we have our final speaker, Michelle Anhang, who is a mental health coach. And her topic is rebuilding your life post-family death. Michelle is a certified life coach who specializes in supporting individuals and families living with mental health challenges, as well as those moving forward after loss. In addition to coaching, Michelle is a motivational speaker who shares her story of becoming a widow at the age of 34 when her husband died by suicide, and how she navigated her way through stigma, shame, and her own mental health challenges to rebuild her life intentionally. So let's give a round of applause and welcoming Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I'm so glad we got connected last week.
Yes, me too. It's great to be here.
The power of like online now, you can really find anyone. And I was reading your story, like looking through your videos and podcasts. I was like, I need to reach out to you. And the fact that we're both in the coaching world. Yes, I love it. So thank you so much for being here. So why don't we start off with your story of what's your story and why are you so passionate about mental health?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I lost my husband by suicide. He sadly was suffering from severe mental illness at the time. Because of the fear of stigma, the family decided to say that he died in an accident instead of telling the truth about his suicide. And nobody had known about the mental illness as well. So that was something that I carried with me for more than 10 years. It was the secret that, impacted my life in terrible ways, affected my mental health, having anxiety, always worrying that somebody was going to find out and, call me out on it, depression just from not being able to grieve the loss in the way that I needed to. Grieving a suicide is a little bit different than grieving a natural death or, even an accident, but there are a lot of different emotions that go with it. So just hiding all of that and hiding my truth really impacted me until, I went through a process of healing and realized that there are so many people who are living with secrets about mental health, about suicide, and other things of just feeling that they can't be who they are. So I made it my mission to really talk about my story, share my story, and help people realize that you're not stuck where you are right now. There's always hope, and there's always the possibility to change things and really thrive in life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being so brave to share your story. And let's talk about that in terms of, how to really rebuild your life and career post-family death. And I have to tell you, like I do know people right now, like clients or people in my network as well, who, because of COVID, they've lost a family member and are trying to rebuild their life and find their new purpose and find a job. And, let's go through some of the steps that you have for people to help them go through this grieving process and to build their life again.
Yeah. The steps are not quite so linear. I don't know. It's more like a whirlpool than steps, because grief is really it's a form of surrender. And, for all of us who are type A's, and I'm included in that, we kind of want, like, give me the steps.
Yeah.
So I do want to say, like, this is a wonderful exercise in surrender, in learning to let go, in really being with every emotion, every thought, every feeling that does come up. Accepting that it's going to happen on its own timeline. So many people, and I know from my own experience as well that, we're not very comfortable with that emotion of grief. And, people kind of, they'll be there in the beginning as much as they're able to. And then after a period of time, it's like, okay, you should be over this by now. Maybe you should be moving on, and we feel like we're doing something wrong. Maybe I'm grieving wrong. And so, my first message is everyone has their own timeline. Don't worry about what other people are saying or thinking or doing. Your grief is yours alone. And so accept that and just be with it. And, the other piece is getting the support from people who are able to help you. Often we will reach out to the people that we know within our circles, assuming, okay, well, they'll be there, but, not everyone can be there with that amount of emotion, with that kind of grief. So, we have to look for the people, be discerning and look for the people who actually can support us in the way that we need them to. So whether that's within your circle, reaching out, outside of your circle, I often speak about social media and saying, for all of the negative things about it, we're very lucky at this time that we do have social media, in the sense that, say Facebook, for example, there are groups for nearly everything. So, you can find your people. You can find the people that can support you. We're not limited these days, professional support, peer support. There are so many people that want to help us become our best selves. And it's just a matter of looking for them and finding them.
Yeah, so true. So true. I was just reading here. Robert commented that he really feels you, and mentioned how he suffered from depression for decades. I read here. This is a great next question to this: is how to build your sense of worth and confidence after feeling you've lost it all. And I see this right now a lot in the work I do as a career coach. The confidence piece, in terms of really, because it's such a competitive market, but they've been looking for a long time, that sense of confidence is gone. And they feel like they're just not worthy anymore.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to finding the people that are going to build us up. I think, my underlying message through all of this is that, there are people out there that want to support us, that want to build us up. We may not know who they are yet, but they're out there. And so just keep looking. And, it's also about doing things that challenge us and that build, that make us proud of ourselves. Each little baby step that we take, and every time we do something that, we're proud of, builds that confidence. And it gets, the first time we're going to do anything, it's always hard. But, if we keep doing it, after the first time we've done it, it's like, hey, I did that. It wasn't that bad. And, or it was great. And the next time it gets easier and easier and easier. So, keep it one step at a time, get the people to support you, and then keep doing those little steps one after the other of things that will make you proud of yourself, of things that will help you feel good about who you are, that will build the confidence, because it does get easier over time.
Yeah. Take those baby steps, one step at a time. Right. That's what it really is. To tie back into this theme of careers, a lot of times, a lot of my clients ask me, how do I become more confident in speaking on camera like you, Diana? And I was like, I didn't come out this way. It took me also years of practicing and trials and errors. And, I was like an introvert. I was not confident. So it's taking those baby steps as well to build that sense of confidence and that purpose there, right?
And I'm the same as you. I'm an ambivert, but public speaking was never my thing. And I laugh sometimes at, like, Oh my gosh. And now this is what I do for a living. This is my life. I do, talks, now, especially during the pandemic, I'm giving talks a few times a week. And it's funny. And it's one of those things that, I'll still feel it, beforehand. Yeah. It's like, the jitters still come up. It's like, it's fine because I've done it. And I've also come to the place of embracing my humanness. And just saying like, okay, and you know what, if I trip over my words, that's okay. We all do. And, not every day is going to be perfect, and it's okay. It doesn't affect who I am. I still have value, and recognizing that and I'm a recovering perfectionist. So, this is a lesson I'm reminding myself of constantly, that making mistakes is not, has nothing to do with my worth.
That's a good one.
Yeah. We are all human. We're gonna trip up, and it's okay. Keep going. And the truth is, we notice it more than anybody else. Most people are not paying that much attention.
That's such a good point, right? We're our own worst critics, right? That we're so hard on ourselves. And I love what you said about the humanness. It really goes back to, the authenticity, the vulnerability. And I noticed even for myself, like this year, I decided to share more of my personal stories as well. Like for the last several years, I've been sharing a lot of tips on job search and career, but this year I decided to share more stories to help people feel more connected. And I noticed in terms of the engagement has increased. I've been meeting more people sharing their own stories or messaging me that, I went through this as well. And I think right now, being in a virtual world, that is more important than ever to feel connected, even though we're, far away from each other.
I agree. Yeah, it's interesting because one of my closest friends, had known me when I was a very closed up person. And then, I started sharing more and more and more. And she reflected back to me that, now that you're so open and you're sharing so much of yourself, you're just giving me that much more of you to love. And it was like, right?
I love that. That's such a great message, right? Oh, so much more to love because they just know more of who you are.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so powerful. So let's talk about how to choose to thrive instead of just survive. I think, with COVID last year, a lot of people's minds is like, I just need to get through this. Like, I just need to survive. And, how can we really thrive instead of just survive now that we're in 2021?
And still experiencing COVID. And I think a big piece of it is, accepting there's a time and a place for everything. And, sometimes it's okay to just survive. We don't want to be making ourselves wrong for where we're at. And at the same time, we do want more for ourselves. So I think really it's knowing yourself, knowing like, okay, when am I letting myself off the hook a little too much? And when is letting myself off the hook exactly what I need? So it's creating that balance and really just seeing like, okay, well, what do you want? I mean, making that choice, just saying, okay, I'm going to thrive. We can all just say that, but it's about really meaning it and just asking yourself, like, what does it look like to thrive? What do I really want out of life? And sometimes we don't know what that what is. And often with clients, I'll start with, how do you want to feel? And working backwards from there, and just, based on the emotions of, I want, for me, it's freedom. And so it's like, I want to feel free. What does feeling free look like? What are things that I do that can help me feel free? The happiness, the joy, the connection, whatever it means to each of you to thrive. It's like, start with the emotion and then think about what are the things in my life currently that I can do, or what can I be doing more of that will help me get to those feelings.
I love that. I'm going to ask the audience, take a pause here.
Sure.
If you guys could share with us the words of how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? Like, type in those words of how you want to feel. And then I want you to type in and share with us, what are those things that you can do to feel that way as well? What are some of those baby steps of things that you can do to feel that way? I love it because it's tapping into the emotion side of things, right?
Yeah.
Right. That is so key. Like, I'm big on inspiration. So I have a lot of motivational quotes in my office. And I don't know, it just lets me up when I see it. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to feel this way. Like I have one right here. It says, your life is now, seize it and make it amazing.
That's amazing.
Every time I read it, I'm like, yeah, my life is now. I want to make it amazing. And then I think about things I can do to make it amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I've got little sticky notes right in front of me as well of little reminders of, things that will inspire me too.
Yeah. Let's see if the comments are coming in, right? Grateful, focus on the positive, respected, cared, non-judged.
Yeah.
I love that. I love this. I love this. So let's talk about this in terms of how to choose courage over fear. And especially now, when people are looking to pivot in careers, pivot in their business, there's definitely a lot of fear. How can we really choose courage over fear?
Yeah. That is a daily, hourly, by the moment choice. And I think really it's about reminding ourselves constantly of like, okay, what do I want? And I have a teacher who used to say, go before you know. And that's something that sticks with me, excuse me, all the time of just, the fear is going to be there, and that's okay. That fear has its own purpose, and it does serve us at times. And sometimes we have to just choose, okay, it's there and I'm doing it anyways. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm going to take that risk. And that's really courage.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, let me see here.
Lots of amazing comments. I was just watching.
I know. I love it.
Yeah. Carpe diem. Yes. Reading that. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. One thing is that, to go before one of my saying is make your why greater than your fear.
Fabulous.
Right? When you make your why greater than your fear, you're just going to do it. Right. Like for me, for my why even doing this was like, for me, it's, I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact, even though I feel for me, it's also scary to talk about these, touchy topics or hard to talk about topics. My why was that, this is more important than just me feeling, awkward or, and all that. Right.
Yeah. I love that. And it reminds me of, often I think about my commitment, that it's not about me, it's about what I'm committed to. And so, sharing my story is very vulnerable. And I'm very committed to ending stigma, to making mental health something that is, the same as how we talk about physical health. And so the commitment is about so much more than my fear. And that's what helps me get through it, of just like, no, I'm committed to this work. This is really, really important to me. This is touching on my values and, my why, like you were saying, and that helps me move past it, that this isn't even about me.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we're the messengers.
I'm actually curious with your story, how you discover coaching or how you decided to move into coaching and do the work that you do today. What was that process like for you? What was the aha hour?
So it's funny you ask that, because I didn't really know much about coaching, but I have a close friend who had become a coach, and I didn't even really know what it was. And she was like, no, you're going to love this. Try it out. I was working in finance at the time. And she said, it's a 2.5-day course. If you don't like it, you'll learn some great, management skills and things like that. Just try it out. And I went in, and the first day I was like a deer caught in headlights. And like, where am I? What's going on? But then slowly, as I started to get comfortable, I realized these are my people. This is what I've been like. I didn't even know I was looking for this my whole life, and here it was. So yes, I'm very grateful to my friend for really bugging me enough to take this course, that I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And once I saw that this existed, I didn't even know it existed. It was just like, all these people are like me. They are sensitive. They're talking about their feelings and getting vulnerable and what we want. And it was like, yes, I'm here. And then it was just like, you can't stop me.
It's like you crave for that, right? That was the same for me too.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know the world of coaching. I was in recruiting, and I was meeting more and more people, I guess more executives. it was through these people I met who are a lot more experienced than me. They're like, you should consider coaching, because I was always curious and fascinated by people. And I would ask a lot of questions. And I met an executive coach who introduced me to coaching, and I fell in love with it. It really helped me become a better recruiter as well, like, just through the coaching training.
Sure.
Yeah. How to support others with mental illness or depression or suicidal thoughts. What's your advice for those who may be going through this?
Yeah, great question. So a couple of things. So first of all, if it's somebody that you don't know that they have any kind of diagnosis, maybe they don't, and they're not feeling like themselves, and they come to you and share, okay, this is what I'm going through. Or maybe it's just somebody that you know that you're seeing something's changed and they're not coping well. The first thing I recommend is ask them to go to their doctor to get checked out. Rather, because often we think that, okay, well, if I recommend that they go for therapy, that's being helpful. So, unfortunately, often just because of the stigma around therapy that many people have, they right away, back up against a wall and like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But, a medical doctor, so twofold here. So first of all, a medical doctor can diagnose or tell if, there might be something else going on. And the other piece too is that often we can have vitamin deficiencies, we can have, thyroid issues. There are so many things that can be happening to us physically that will have symptoms of mental health or mental illness. And so, we're not ones to diagnose. If we go and have them go to the doctor, just say, you know what, you don't seem like yourself. Can you go to the doctor, ask for some blood work, get checked out, rule all of that out. And at the same time, the doctor will be able to pick up on that. If they come to you and say, I'm feeling really tired, I have no energy, I'm not feeling like myself, because that could be a B12 deficiency, the iron, there's so many things. So they can rule all of that out. And so that's the one side of it. But the other side is if somebody's coming to you and they're needing to talk, they're feeling really challenged. People don't know, like, well, what should I do? Do I give them advice? Do I not?
Yeah.
Simple answer, ask them. Just ask them, what do you need from me?
What do you need
do
from
you
me?
want me to just listen, or do you want me to help you? And I can tell you 100% of the time, they're going to know exactly what that answer is. They know what they need and why they're coming to you. And so you don't have to you don't have to guess, just take the guesswork out of it and just ask them, just, I want to be here for you in the way that you need me. What, is it just to vent or advice?
Yeah, that's a good one. Is it vent or is it advice?
Yeah.
Right? Or do you just want to hold the space for me to, Yeah.
And they will tell you. And so, and I find that we are better support people when we know what's expected of us.
It's so true. I find, I'll share a little bit from me, like my story. I had postpartum depression back in 2017 when I had my second child. So for a good 8 months that I had it for, and I was silent for a while until it was really hard, that I had to seek help from more like my friends who were like coaches to guide me through. I just needed someone to coach me through it there. But it was really hard, like for me, just having all these thoughts, right? It's also like hormones and everything, lack of sleep and all that. But what I found is, you just need to find, like you said, find your people who love you, who adore you, who believe in you. You just need a few of those people to help you go through those challenging times.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. That's so important, like to find someone, whoever that is, there. And and this is why I'm so passionate about it right now. Like I talk about it because we really have to take care of ourselves.
Yes, we do. We do.
Right. Yeah. Amy talked about earlier, how basically putting ourselves first before we do anything else.
Yes.
To fill our cup. So to end this, I want to talk a little bit about mindfulness, how to practice mindfulness to reduce stress. And maybe if we can do an exercise together with our audience here, that'll be great.
Yes, I'd love to. Mindfulness has been a huge piece of my own healing journey. Mindfulness is, for those of you who are not so familiar, because I know a lot of people think, oh, that's meditating. And I tried it once and I can't do it. So first of all, to know that Mindfulness is about, so first of all, meditation is a form of mindfulness, but it's not the only way to, to practice. And mindfulness is really about being present in the moment and having an awareness of what is happening internally and what is happening externally around us. And then from that place of awareness, we can then be at choice on how we want to move forward. So sometimes it's about saying, like, maybe I'm feeling a mood and I don't know, why or what it is, and sometimes, and I think we can all agree, like sometimes we're just having a bad day and we're just like kind of letting it out on everybody around us because we don't even realize what's happening with us. But sometimes we might check in and go like, oh, I'm not doing great. And then from that place, it's like, okay, I'm going to just kind of give everybody a heads up, let them know, like, I'm not having a great day. Don't take anything I'm saying seriously right now. Or maybe I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to just kind of lay low today and really just, but we're doing this from a place of choice. And so, for me, having that, constant check-in with myself really helped me to notice, for one thing, my patterns. It helps me with my own mental health. So, for me with depression, doing these check-ins, I've learned how to detect the signs of when I'm having an episode very, very early on. So once I recognize, okay, like for me, my depression shows up with exhaustion. I don't really go into dark moods or sadness or a lot of crying. I get exhausted and I kind of numb out emotionally. That's how it shows up for me. And so when I started to learn how to make those connections, it was like as soon as I noticed that, okay, you know what, I want to have an afternoon nap. That for me is a trigger of, oh, something might be happening. Or noticing if I'm watching, a movie that, is a tearjerker, and I cry at everything. So if I'm watching a tearjerker and it's not impacting me, it's like, is something going on here? So these little things, and then immediately I bump up my self-care. So one of the tools that I teach all of my clients, and I teach a mindfulness course for mental health. And so, an easy tool to do, you can do it as many times a day as you want, is a quick check-in of my body is, my emotion is, or my emotions are, and my thoughts are. And just have a one-word answer for each of those. So I don't know if we have the time to do that now.
Yeah. If we can maybe guide, I love it. My body, my emotion and thoughts.
Body,
guide some,
emotion and thoughts. And just take a moment, close your eyes. You can put your hand on your heart. You don't have to. And just check in. My body, my emotions, my thoughts, one word.
I have like calm and stillness.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Empathy, gratitude. That's what people are typing in here.
Yeah.
That's so simple, but it's a quick check-in, right?
Yeah. And then, so I noticed, well, my body is cold. So as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to go get a sweater. And I hadn't noticed, like I've been cold all morning and kind of ignoring it.
Yeah.
Noticing, okay, my thoughts are clear and my emotion is high. I'm going to say it's high, and again, it's, it could be our emotions are high or low. You can have an actual word for it. But it's that idea of like having that awareness. And then from that point saying, okay, do I want to do something about it? You may say my emotion is sad and I'm going to choose to go with it. And I'm going to let myself have a good cry. And and that's great too. And it's really just allowing it. And it, or it could be, well, I'm in a board meeting right now, so maybe now's not a good time to cry. I'm going to give myself time to cry later. Really, and it's not about fixing it. And the reason why we only use the one word is because we love to go into story about why am I feeling this way? Doesn't matter why. The why is not important to the mindfulness.
Oh, I love that you mentioned
yeah,
that. So it's not about analyzing why am I
that's right.
feeling this way.
Yeah,
It's just noticing I'm feeling this way, and we get to decide, do we want to do something about it to address it?
right, right.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that. Right. So
yeah,
it's like that of self-awareness and then deciding what to
right.
do about
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
making that decision.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, I
we'll want
love
to
that.
fix things, we judge things, we go all over the place with things, make ourselves wrong. Oh, well, I shouldn't be feeling sad right now. Well, why not? You are. So
Right.
that's
Right.
it.
That's such a good point, right? Because what you just said here, right? Your body, I use an example. I'm thinking of like people who tell me my body's exhausted, but then my mind's telling me I should not be feeling this way because I should be working still, or
Right.
I got all these other things
Right.
to do.
Or I got a good night's sleep. I shouldn't be tired.
Yeah.
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 Right. And so we got to decide, well, what do we want to do? If my body's not feeling good, what are you going to do?
Right.
I have to tell you, I felt so good last Thursday. So I took a day off last Thursday because my son had dental surgery, and I already planned that day off. But I was also very exhausted, and so I took a half an hour nap. That I just really needed that because I was having like a migraine, and I felt so good. But I felt so guilty taking it because I'm like, I should be taking my son. But I told my husband about it. He's like, you need just to rest
Yeah.
and take a nap. And I'm so glad I did that, to give myself that half an hour nap there. It's what I
That's
needed.
awesome. Exactly. And that's it. And it's like, and then you were able to be with your son from, the place of having a full cup and having the overflow. And we don't, we often don't give ourselves permission to do that. And we end up, we think, oh, well, I should be doing this, or, I shouldn't take care of myself and I have to help everyone else. And it's like, but when you're depleted, you're going to get resentful of like, oh, I'm so tired and I have to help you with X, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like that's not being loving to yourself or to the person that you care about. The more loving thing to do is take care of you, be in a good space, and then come to them from that place, because you're going to enjoy each other that much more.
Yeah. What's your quick tip? I just saw here for those who have too much thoughts going on or have trouble sleeping. What's your tip for them on that? Right.
So, letting the thoughts be, but there's actually a breathing technique that I teach every one of my clients, actually. And many of you may know it too, if you're familiar with breathing techniques, but it really helps slow our mind down and it helps slow our nervous system down. And it's called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So what you do is you're going to inhale for the count of 4, hold your breath for the count of 7, and then exhale for the count of 8. And you're doing that now. So if you do that, maybe 3 times in a row, you're going to notice that you're going to feel a lot calmer. And this 4-7-8 breathing technique helps with insomnia too. And I only learned that a couple of weeks ago, which is so funny because for the last couple of years I've been teaching this technique, and then I was reading, oh, if you have insomnia, do that. I'm like, are you kidding? And I tend to wake up in the middle of the night and have trouble falling back to sleep. And I started doing it. It's like, oh my gosh, this works. So
I'm going to try it. Try it. I love this because I have that too. I'll fall asleep and then I'll get up middle of the night and I'm like, okay, I'll do some quick work and then have trouble falling asleep again.
Yeah, well, don't do quick work either. You should never look at your phone, never look at your computer. But just do the breathing. But,
just do the breathing.
Yeah, because the nice thing about it is that when you're busy focusing and counting on your breath, the thoughts are stopping. Like you can't be having racing thoughts and counting your breath at the same time. So it eliminates that, and the doing it 3 times is a minimum. If you're feeling pretty stressed out, do it 5 times. If you do it 10 times or more, you're actually doing a breathing meditation. So that's why I say to everyone, like, you can meditate. That is meditating. You're focusing on your breath.
Yes.
So that's actually a meditation. Do it as long as you need to. But, if anyone's trying it now, do it 3 to 5 times and, notice the change.
I love it. Oh, these are such great techniques. I'm going to try it out as well. So Michelle, what are your final words of encouragement for those who are listening?
Final words of encouragement are, none of us are stuck where we are right now. If things are not going great, they will get better. They can get better. Just, reach out for support is the other big part of that, of just, we can't do this alone often, and we're not meant to do this alone. We humans are wired for connection, for support. So reach out if you are struggling with anything. Reach out to somebody who can listen.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I'm so glad we got connected. I'm sure we're gonna have more collaborations down the road here.
Yeah, I would love to. And thank you so much for having me here today.
My pleasure. So guys, make sure to check out Michelle's website as well. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. I mean, if you even just search her videos on YouTube, you can see some of the interviews as well that she's had in the past. So check it out there. Thank you so much, Michelle. You take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye now. Oh, that was so good. Oh, did you guys enjoy this? I love this. I want to hear from you guys. Like, what's your biggest takeaway from today's session? I would love to hear some comments here. Like, what are some of your biggest takeaway? I'm just going to do a quick recap. Like, I've heard, key messages around self-care. You got to put yourself first. The importance of finding your tribe, finding the right people to support you, knowing that you do matter, that you are a gift to this world as well, that it's totally okay to talk about your struggles, right? And it's all about being human, right? It's not about being perfect. It's okay that we have our flaws there, right? That is so important. And, to know that there's always a way. We get to choose. We get to choose to get back up, however we respond to tough situations, tough times, tough moments. We get to choose. I had a message earlier this week is to keep showing up. Right? Don't give up on yourself. Keep showing up, even when times are hard, even when you get interrupted, even when things don't go according to plan. Just keep showing up for yourself, for the world, for the people around you. Know that you matter, right? That your life matters, that your voice matters, your dreams count as well. So I really hope you enjoy this session today. I love seeing right now, what the learnings are here, right? Around sharing your struggles, getting back up, seeking help, checking your body, do all these things, help spread the word, even of this talk. I know this was just streamed on YouTube and Facebook today. Help me spread the word, share it on LinkedIn as well. If you know anyone who could benefit from this, share this with them. Okay. So I appreciate you. And I'm so glad I decided to do this. I was just called to do this. And, I had less than 10 days to put all this together in light of some difficulties with technology. But I think at the end of the day, we had a great conversation. We had a great turnout as well. So thank you so much. Tomorrow, I'm going live again on my weekly live show, Dare to Differentiate live show, where I have a special guest, Tiffany Uman, to come talk to me on how to advance your career as top talent. So we're going to be talking about strategies on how do you really differentiate, how to stand out. We're going to talk about personal branding, communications, and leadership as well, seeking support. Tiffany has an amazing background. She received 7 promotions under 10 years at a Fortune 500 company. She's a senior marketing director. So I would love to see you guys again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time there. Okay. So thank you. You guys take care, and I will see you tomorrow. Cheers.